it kind of looked like what a chupacabra could look like, but I don't know if it was. But it was in my friend's house,
Oh god.
and I know it
In the
ran down
house?
this, and I said, "You're from the stars," and he goes, "Yeah, yeah, I am." I started channeling, and then I felt like I needed to speak like a robot.
It's like an actor trying to get into the mind of a
Mhm,
character in a way, changing your physicality a little bit, changing the way you
mhm.
speak helps them kind of find the psyche.
Could be a fun experiment, like on an investigation, like coffee drinkers, and just like, okay, we'll all drink this tonight. We'll go back again the next night, drink a different kind of coffee, and see different experiences.
Today's episode is brought to you by Alien Coffee Bean, bringing you kindness and coffee. If you like today's content, please like, subscribe, comment down below, and of course, you can find the video interview on youtube.com/paranormalpop. Welcome to this episode of Coffee and UFOs. My guest is psychic medium and paranormal investigator Mariah Kunau. Mariah, welcome to Coffee and
Hi,
UFOs.
hi. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Cheers. I've got my
Cheers,
coffee and I'm
cheers.
ready to hear you.
Got my hair. Yep. Cheers, little heart for Valentine's Day coming up.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah. As long as we have brew of paranormal together, all
Yeah.
is well with the world.
Yes.
Speaking of paranormal, this is what you do and you live for. Have you, Mariah Kunau, ever seen a UFO?
Yes. On more than one occasion. I was about 10 when I saw the most, like, you know, I scratching like, oh my God, what is that? So
Yeah.
yeah, I have seen.
And what
I think
what did it look like? What did you see?
um it was at night. I mean, and I was my mom and I were driving home from like a trip, I don't know where we were going, but we were going home, and we were going probably about, I don't know, 60, 65 miles an hour, and to my
Hmm.
right, it was the traditional cigar shape, and at the tip of it, the oh gosh, it shined red, white, and white, just alternate. And then I think the back half also was just white, but the top of it, or the very tip of it, was red, white. And it just kind of went around the same speed as the car, from what I remember. And then there was one behind it, and it's really hard to describe, but it was like a disc, but it was like a round, looked like a plate, like that shape. But then it had a single wing around it. So
So
it's like
the cigar was going in one direction, and
cigar
this
was going, the cigar was just going along, and
mhm,
then I looked behind it like it was, so here's the cigar,
was trailing.
and then it was just trailing behind it.
Aha. Okay.
Yeah. But it was weird because the other disc one wasn't, it wasn't flying like this, it was flying like that. And it had a single
Okay.
wing that rotated
So
around it, and it was not illuminated. It's really kinda hard to
right,
describe,
but
but
that's the typical length of the disc UFO wasn't parallel to the ground as
yeah,
we
it
would
wasn't.
normally imagine. It was
Mm-mm.
perpendicular,
It was perpendicular.
up
Yeah,
kind of upright like that. Okay.
yeah.
And was there any noise or any
I didn't hear anything. I I can't remember. I was like, I think 10 or 11. I can't remember, but I think I put down the window just to hear, and I didn't hear anything, but it kept going for until we surpassed, oh no, I can't remember, but it lasted the whole time. They didn't disappear. They just stayed with us. So I was just so in awe. So, and then I drew it, and I don't know what happened to the drawing because my mom saved everything. I was
yeah.
mad. The one thing she didn't save, but, you know, she said, "Oh," I said, "Mom, could you find out about," she goes, "Yeah, I'll call the," I think she's like, "Oh, I'll call the FAA or the Air Force," and they didn't, the next day, I said, "Did you find out anything?" She goes, "No, they didn't have any reports," but I know
Yeah.
she didn't.
I mean, on occasion people get lucky, but that's usually the case.
Yeah.
Um, so you are invested in the paranormal full time. You were in New York City
Yeah.
recently, and we got to meet up for
Yes.
another cup of coffee, a real cup of coffee,
I know.
together,
So
which
yep.
was awesome. And you were there looking at some paranormal locations. You fly east to west. You've been on the Netflix series Surviving Death. So, as a paranormal investigator and a psychic medium,
Mhm.
um, is there anything else that kind of fills your time, or is that it 100%?
I'm always curious about, other people's stories, like,
Hmm.
even your experiences. If you've seen a UFO, if you've seen other, like, if you believe in cryptids or have seen them or had any experiences. So I'm always l- curious about other people's stories, because even though, like, I haven't had personal experiences, let's say, like, with cryptids or kind of anything else besides the spirit world and ghosts per se,
Hmm.
and also doing my mediumship work. Um, I think there's more out there, but it just takes a lot of time. So,
When
but
people when people come to you as a psychic medium, what are they coming to you for? Is it because they're just having paranormal happenings at home, or do they ever say to you, "Hey, I had this experience with like cryptid or something very strange like that"?
um, not they don't. It's really interesting. Mainly, it's they want to hear from a loved one,
Hmm.
who's passed. Um, another handful of them, they do have some experiences in their home, and they're not quite sure what it is. I just got an email from someone about a handful about their children and seeing things. And as far as cryptids and things, I don't get a lot of that, but um, sometimes, like, I'm just kind of thinking, not a whole lot. I do get a couple UFO ones, like, well, could that have been, an alien? And so that's like, well, it could be. I don't
Hmm.
know,
But
so
what about like a psychic connection to, like, if somebody is curious about some entity or encounter in their life, have you? Because there's this whole the CE5 movement that people try to make contact consciously with these alleged extraterrestrials out there to
mhm,
call them down so you can see the UFO, and
yeah.
which tells me that if that's true, then there is a psychic ability there somehow. Have you ever experienced something like truly alien that you've connected with psychically?
I may have thought I had, but it's really hard to kind of prove. Um, I know because I also got my start with before during the paranormal, and then the mediumship developed later, but
Mhm.
trance channeling. And at one location was just like a historical home here, and I started channeling, and then I felt like I needed to speak like a robot. And my voice kind of got like this. But the spirit was making me speak like that, or
Right. Yeah.
affecting me. And I thought, well, what is this? And then, my natural mind goes in my, starts going
Mm.
like, well, what is going on? And then I heard I don't know, from an extra source. Yes, that's who you think we are. And so, like, okay. I recorded it. I don't remember what I said, and normally I usually kind of have a memory of it, but I don't remember what was said. So that was my first, like, "Huh, okay." But yeah, that was
So
my first
when you
time.
had that sensation of like a voice change of some sort,
Yeah,
does that mean all those Hollywood movies are right? I
I
mean,
know. That was like, "Well, is this a spirit just joking with me and they're trying to pretend that they are?" And so I had so many questions. I'm like, "Is this just my higher conscious labeling it so I know?"
uh-huh,
Maybe maybe they don't even have a voice, and that, as I'm saying this,
yeah.
I'm just like, "Huh, maybe they don't even have a voice because it's all telepathic." But they needed to influence me so I would recognize them.
I never thought it was that far off anyway, because I mean, humans, we mirror other people
Yeah.
naturally. Sometimes it's even like a social survival skill, especially when you're in an uncomfortable situation or people you're unfamiliar with, or perhaps even someone who you might consider as a threat. You could mirror their behavior a little bit because that makes them feel a little bit more comfortable around you because there's a familiarity that you're reflecting back to them.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's someone that you admire, right? And you mirror their behavior. So if indeed you're having some sort of conscious contact, exchange with another being that is trying to say something,
Yeah.
maybe it makes sense. It's like an actor trying to get into the mind of a
Mhm.
character in a way, changing your physicality a little bit, changing the way you
Mhm.
speak helps them kind of find the psyche of that character.
And and even I think even just, spirit people or souls who've lived here, I think they also sometimes do that too. And I know that sometimes they do that with children, so they don't scare kids. They're gonna
Mm,
come in as as kind as and not a scary looking figure or anything. But going
right.
back to to aliens, it's I think there's something there. And even with my work, I, and I think I don't think there's enough, or at least I should say I don't know enough about um, discussions about how other people can tune in and say, well, I think that they're an alien. I don't know if there's a commonality, but I know I've met some people that, and I've, in a psychics, I'm like, there's something about them that's different. It's like they have there's a higher awareness, or there's something different about it. Um, and even when I was doing some psychic work, um, I tuned in this one guy and I said, and I was also channeling him a little bit. And I said, "You're from the stars." And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, I am."
Wow.
And I didn't, we all come from the stars, but
Mhm.
this took on a whole new connotation, like literally from another, star, galaxy, whatever. So I think it's fascinating. And I don't know if a lot of psychics and mediums talk about that, or even
Mhm.
channelers talk about that. But even the layperson, I still think we have this intuitiveness that there's something there, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, Carl Sagan, I think, used to say, we're made of star stuff or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
along
we're
those
made of
lines.
stardust. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and, Neil deGrasse Tyson says, we're all little, universes. Um, so, yeah, is there a sort of quantum underlying field of some sort that you think you're tapping into? How are you able to connect, with people's, loved ones, or so it seems at least?
it well, I think, or from my experience, I mean, because I connect from my soul to another soul, one you just can't see, it's the unseen. And then they give me evidence that of who they were or who they are, or when they were alive. But what makes, you know, I think an alien also has an essence of a being. They are a being. They are
Mhm.
energetic being, but they just it's kind of like I think certain people may have certain receptors, like like we're all like radio stations, and so we just happen, like I can tune into this, maybe not for very long or very clear, but I think it's definitely possible. I mean, I just actually got a book, I'm sure, UFOs and psychic and close
Oh, that's so
counters.
funny. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't have a lot of the UFO books, but this kind of was intriguing about how um, the psychic connection with an experience. So I thought
Yeah.
that was interesting. So
UFOs and what is the subtitle?
um, UFOs, psychic
Psychic Ghost.
close encounters. So
Okay.
it's more of what happens afterwards and how people become more psychic or felt they were telepathically connecting. So it's all different, that aspect of it. So
Yeah.
I
When
thought
when
that
we
was
were talking
interesting.
recently, I was sharing with you that I was, in the past couple of years, kinda leaning more into, my curiosity into the afterlife and to, hauntings and EVPs and this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then for you, I feel like you're kind of leaning a little bit more into some other topics like ufology, spending a
Yeah.
little bit more time there than you had in the past. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, go
It
ahead.
there's just I mean, I know, like I said, I normally would not really pick up, there's so many books, and I'm so fascinated, and it's so, and I don't know if you've been to Sedona, Arizona, but they actually, and my friend has, and I really wanna go, but there's this woman out there, and she can, like, summon the crafts. And
Fine,
my
yeah.
friend's a psychic and medium herself, and she's like, "Mariah, you have to go because they're out there." I mean, there's the retreats people go and they're like, you interact with them and, it's just I wanna experience that, and I think anybody can go. So, but it's just the tangibility and the knowing and the validation, it's a little bit more difficult than being able to connect to someone else's, like, loved one saying, "Oh, and, I feel like your father's here and da 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 da." I'm making that up, but I'm just saying, it's I'm able to get more validation, and it's more of a constant and than interacting or trying to see a UFO. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. Have you seen a cryptid yourself? Uh, Bigfoot, anything?
Oh, n n well,
Chupacabra?
um, no, I m I I'm just thinking, no, I haven't, but I know of, an acquaintance who they say they did, it was the 3 of them. We were on a bike trip from
Mhm.
Seattle to San Francisco, and I think it was in Oregon, we split off, and, when we met again, they were just like, there are 3 of them. They're like, oh my god, this is what happened." They're like, "We saw Bigfoot." And I was, I think, 12 or 13 at the time, and so I wasn't really into it, but I was still curious. But they said they saw one off in the mountains because we were riding down the mountains in Oregon. But, so that piqued my curiosity. But I did see I don't know what it was. It was could have been a cryptid,
Mhm.
but it was definitely some kind of a like, it kinda looked like what a chupacabra could look like, but I don't know if it was, but it was in my I didn't tell her, but it was in my friend's house,
Oh god.
and I know, it
In the
ran down the
house?
stairs. It was in the house, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, I'm not gonna tell her because she was." Yeah, I'm not gonna tell her.
Did she have any
Um,
pets?
n no, I'm like, "Oh my god, did one just die prior?" No, she's her parents. No. But it was just that was the only thing, but no, I haven't seen, any of them. Although I'm really, really curious.
So what did it look like in the moment that you got to glance at it?
It looked like a cross be I it's so hard to describe. It looked like a cross between it happened literally so fast, it, like, just round this down the stairs and out and just disappeared. It looked
Mhm.
like kind of almost like a monster in some ways, and it was like a like an alien in the show the movie Alien. S
So
like
like
that
textural skin
like rept oh
or
god, I hate that term, but reptilian in a way,
okay.
and not in um, just look like kind of like a scaling
Mhm.
scales, and just big claws, and yeah, like that. So just and it was kind of hunched over, and it had really long legs. It was just a morph. It was just
Wow.
and it
And
wasn't too it's about 4 feet tall.
was it your imagination at all? Do you know? Like,
I
who
this is about 6, 7 years ago. I don't think
Mhm.
so because no, I don't think it was. I mean, again, it was just so fascinating. It was just like there's a difference between you just knew I knew something was there.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
knew it.
and oftentimes when people do say, "Oh, you just imagined something," there's a difference between kinda seeing, like, a shadow or something kinda
Yeah,
glance by that you think you saw something move. That's I think every single person that has had a moment like that in their life, at
yeah.
least, multiple times. Um, so what you're describing is quite, organic sounding and, three-dimensional and,
Mhm.
uh, descriptive. So what could that possibly be? Is it an a interdimensional interloper? Like, how does that happen?
I don't I don't know, and it was one of those things where sometimes like, even with people you meet, sometimes you meet people and you just like, "Oh, I get along with them," or they're good people, and
Mhm.
sometimes you meet people who just like, "You know what? I'd rather not," maybe a couple seconds of interactions, and I'm just gonna move on. Um, what I felt is I'm like, "You know what? I'm not supposed to look into this." and I think a lot of it was because of my friend has children, and it's like, um, I think it was just in passing. I almost feel like it was connected with the land. So, and it's one of those things where I can't go back and, "Oh, Nancy, I really want this is what I saw." But I think there was something to it because I could there was something about seeing it and then feeling, I didn't feel when I say I didn't feel comfortable, it's like, "Huh, I wonder what that was," but you know what? I think I'm just gonna leave it be. Whereas other aspects, I would probably be more curious. I'm like, "Oh, let me try and tune into it. Let me try and summon it again," but I just kinda left it alone. So,
Can you compare that to seeing a ghost or a spirit?
no, not at all. I mean,
Mhm.
well,
Like,
it was just
what nature
yeah.
of it what of its nature was distinct in that regard?
Um, it I knew it didn't I know it's crazy, but it just didn't feel like it had any or human,
Okay.
essences to it. It was just something literally foreign, and it's like, "Okay." And, um, but there was a no, and I'm like, "I think this whatever this was connected to the land." I did some research of, like, Googling kinda trying what I saw, and I did find a similar thing, but it was just like a drawing for like a science fiction drawing. It looked like something from science fiction movie. That's what it looked like
Mhm.
to me. And whether or not that's what it was, or it just impressed that image on me to let me know it was something not human or it was ever human per se, but it
Mhm.
just was so literally a foreign essence, a foreign energy that I did not recognize. And it's not that I didn't want to know more, but whereas with a spirit or ghost, they have a human quality, they have a human characteristics about them, I can sense them, there's a resonance with them. Where with
Right.
this, it's like, "Huh, what was that?" So, um,
Mhm.
but
When
it
people come
yeah,
Yeah.
no.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's just it intrigued me, and I can still see it to this day, and my friend still lives at that house, so but I haven't been back for a while just because of timing, so
Right, not because of the thing.
yeah, not because of the thing, no.
I'm
No.
not coming to your house anymore until you get that
Yeah,
cleared up.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, geez, that's like a you got ghost hunters, you have Bigfoot hunters, we're gonna need, interdimensional interloper hunters of some
Yeah,
sort. I'm
exactly.
sure there's a
Yeah.
television show coming soon.
Oh, I'm sure.
Um, yeah. So, but when people come to you, do they do you ever get someone who's you get that gut feeling that this is not a good person and maybe I shouldn't be trying to help them?
It's it's rare. Um, I think I can count on one hand. I know this was a while ago, someone reached out to me and he was, he was just dealing with some, like, really dark things, like, he was saying, like, he was summoning the devil and this and that, and even before he said that, he was on the phone, I could just tell by his voice, I'm like, "There's something I don't know if I can help this guy." But as he kept speaking, it was just I kept feeling like the bells and whistles in not a great way. It's like, "You can't
Mhm.
help him. You need to just say, "I'm really sorry. I need to just I can't help you. I'm so sorry." But, there's that only happened, as I can remember once. So, um
Because I can only imagine whether you're a psychiatrist or a psychic medium, a lot of people who might be truly disturbed would
yeah,
go to a psychiatrist or a psychic medium. And I think there's a risk factor there. I mean, did you
yeah.
ever feel unsafe or have you been lucky in that regard?
I've been really lucky in that regard. I mean, I've been taught, you always need, um like, when you go to somebody's house, have someone with you or just be mindful. I mean, luckily, most of my clients are just from, um, word of mouth.
Mhm.
There are some that I don't know, but I we just meet in a common place, but, I don't go in I'm just always mindful, but luckily, I'm just very, very lucky. I've never had that, um, situation where it's like, "Oh gosh," or I felt nervous or anything like that. Yes, there are some clients that that it's in their mind, and they just need that psychiatric help, but it's not that common. I should say I haven't experienced them, but maybe one or two, but I never felt unsafe with them. I just know that they were manifesting things in their own mind and believe believing things which were happening, which were really not there. But that's not that common. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it's not for those of us who keep an open mind to these high strangeness phenomena. Um, how do you discern between when someone is indeed imagining something, or has some serious psychiatric issues, uh, versus someone who's having a valid experience, a real experience? Um,
Um, it's it's a fine line, and I think um, you have so many of these cases I see, like, oh, my house is haunted and things like that, and lots of times um, it's asking the client the right questions, but I also think it's really important to have a psychic come in to be able to tune in to go, you know what? Because when I go in, I go like I can tell just energetically they're in their head, and for me that means it's like this is they're the conduit. It's about them and their mind and their thoughts. Um, and then I will sense when there is actually a spirit affecting something. Lots of times it's both. Sometimes it's the client who's the conduit of the phenomena, but also sometimes I'll see a spirit going, "Yeah, I'm here. I moved the spoon, but that's it. She created everything else," you know? So there is that. Um, but I it's just a fine line, and luckily I work with, I've been on cases with Lloyd Auerbach, the parapsychologist out here on the West Coast, and he's really good at asking the right questions and just presenting things like validating their experience, saying, I know I believe that you believe this, and just guiding them in a really good way. So I learned so much from him. Um, and it's just being mindful and compassionate and just understanding and also educating them about, what things could be or what is. But it's a fine line, and it varies case to case. So, um, but yeah, but sometimes, people do have experiences, and sometimes I just like, what, I don't know what that is, but I know it more what it isn't versus what it is. So,
yeah, and when you don't know what something is, I guess you don't know how to help the person or treat the situation, right?
yeah. I mean, you do your best to kind of chip away and like, okay, I don't think it's that, and I think when you have multiple people looking at the situation, it helps kind of, expose what it is. And I don't think there was ever
It's
a time where we're like, we really don't know. But I mean, he has even stories about people thought they were going crazy, but something about the house, um, their house was like, there was natural methane coming up from the ground, and they
ah,
lived near power lines. So the
yep,
combination between both, they would see bursts of flames, and that was the cause. But yet they thought they were going nuts, or they were living in this house of hell kind of thing, But
right,
it was just natural phenomena. But it took, someone to come out there and believe them and go, okay, what's going on? So I think
yeah.
it's
I
just
mean,
looking at all perspectives is so important.
yeah, I know that close proximity to certain electromagnetic energy can interfere with
Yeah.
how one even feels.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, all those things should be ruled out when possible. I was thinking about the Ghostbusters, uh, and how they talk about not crossing the streams when
Yeah.
they're yeah. So I wonder when you have a case, um, is it a bad idea to bring multiple psychic mediums into the same space? I mean, is it like crossing the streams with psychic energy or
No, that's the best, because I love at work, even in paranormal investigating and even on these, private cases. I love working with other mediums and psychics, because it's kind of, I forget what it's called, but when there's an invisible element in the room, no, but like I can sense the trunk, someone can sense the ear, someone can sense the tail, someone can sense the leg, and then when we're all together, we can put the pieces of the puzzle together and go, "Oh, this is what's going on." So I think the more the better. So crossing the streams, it, I think in a private case it really helps a lot. I think in both it can really help. Um, but in the investigative side, sometimes there will be other mediums who will sense somebody else. I think it's always good. I think it's always a good thing because we get different perspectives and insights. Yeah,
Yeah, and then I guess if that's the case, then there is a validation
yeah.
of what you're seeing or hearing or feeling is real.
Absolutely. Because and it's like it's called a double link, so, like, I'm like, I know there's this woman who's so sad." I mean, this has actually happened, and I'm like, "But I
Mhm.
don't understand why she's so sad," and then as I'm saying, my other friend who's another medium friend, she goes, "Oh, yeah, I feel she's sa." "Oh my god," and then she's like, "I'm starting to get a pain in my stomach," and she's like, "I feel like I had a miscarriage or I lost a baby," and all of a sudden, we all go like, "Oh my god, that's what happened. This woman had a miscarriage." Or something happened to her baby. So then as we're blending, we all kind of start realizing different things. And we're like, yeah, I feel that too. And but because and my friend, she's had a couple children, the spirit I wasn't able to sense that sense of being pregnant or losing a child, but my friend did. So she was able to see that aspect of it. So it's what we're familiar with too. So I think it's a good thing. Um,
The
yeah.
blending that you're talking about, you call that
Mhm.
a double what?
It's called a double or triple link. It's when there's a spirit in the room. Let's say a spirit decided to show up here with you and I, and you're a psychic medium, and I was feeling this spirit. Let's say it was a woman, and she was like I said, she was just really sad, and I could, feel some different things, and then you could tune into her too, and you could start sensing things about her. That's called a double link. So when we both link to the same spirit. And if there's a third medium, then it's a triple link. So we're all tuning into this one essence and
Mm,
sensing different things about them.
and then afterwards, were you able to validate, confirm whether there was a person that had issues with pregnancy or birth?
Um, we found out that it used to be a boarding school for girls.
Okay.
So
And we know
sometimes
historically, those can be very traumatic times and
yeah,
a mistreatment
yeah,
of women for sure, and
yeah.
girls.
So there was something to that, and it may not have been, on record or we didn't get a name, but the
Mhm.
thing is that this woman, she needed to release whatever pain or whatever she was going through, and it took all three of us to kind of help work with her and help her.
Well, maybe
So,
she needed somebody to hear her because at the time, people didn't want to hear her, and they were telling her to be quiet, and,
yeah,
um, "This is how things are done, and too bad for you, your feelings don't matter."
yeah,
Um, so you give her a chance,
yeah,
hopefully, to kind of, just get it off her chest, I suppose.
yeah.
If that's the case, I mean, what happens then? Do they still linger around, or is it like, "Ah, I finally got to share this with somebody, now I can move on?"
I think that's how it is. Because just
Mm,
like us, they have free will, but I think there was such emotions, and it's just like if you have a good cry, you get that off your chest, and so I think with her, it's just she needed to tell that story, and then she was able to continue to with her involvement. But what's funny is when you're mentioning, like, having different mediums, this cross streams, there are some situations where you have, different mediums have different belief systems sometimes and different levels of egos. So that's sometimes when the streams can cross. Um, it doesn't happen that often, but um, I've seen different, some opposing views of mediums or just people who just don't get along, and their psychic mediumship streams cross, and it's just like, oh, the drama just ensues. So you can
so there
have
is
that
a
too.
danger there could be a danger in crossing the streams.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Alright,
yeah.
yeah, and, I mean, what if you're in a situation and I guess maybe you wouldn't. You can tell me or not, but um, in a situation where the other psychic is not really a psychic, what does one do then?
Um, I it 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 depends on the situation, but just I don't obviously I don't call them out, um, at
Right.
all. "Hey, you're just making this up." Um, but I just kinda go along with it, and then but I and then I'll kind of put questions back to them just to say, well, maybe they're just having a bad. I don't know. I just never assume, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know how good they are. I don't. It's not that common, but I never say anything, but I
Mhm.
always just make the best of the situation. Well, okay, maybe they do know something. I don't know, but it doesn't happen that often. So it's
What if you're not feeling it so strong? I mean, do you tell your clients or whoever you're with, say, you know what, it's just I'm not tapping in today, or how do you deal with that sort of situation, or are you always tapped in?
um Well, I can always tune in, but sometimes, like, if I'm really tired or if I'm just not physically feeling well, and I'm just like, yeah, or, we have off days too, we don't have, you know, just like anybody, we're human. And so,
Yeah.
um, I'll just say, I'm just not feeling it today. Or, I like sometimes I'll say, I'm getting there's so much static on the line. I'm just not able to tune in. I'll just say it, and then we just move forward or, work with that. But um, with clients, usually I feel that I'm not tuning into anything because there's not a spirit there. And it's like, no, and I
Mm.
know whatever's going on, it's really the client is the conduit, and that they're having some imbalances and they need some help. That's when I'm like, I can't do anything about this because there's no spirit there. Excuse
Well,
me.
if you're feeling tired, you can always have a good cup of coffee. It works for me every time.
And what are you drinking there?
This is actually Alien Coffee Bean, which is my new favorite coffee. But I grind it down and then I run it through an espresso machine. They make a long espresso. It's really
Oh,
good.
nice.
Yeah.
What is it, more dark, or what is it? Is it
It's darker. Yeah. Yeah. I
okay?
think I don't all the coffee aficionados, forgive me, but they always say that the lighter roasts are stronger in caffeine. But I always feel that the darker roast just gives me more of a kick. Now, it could be a placebo effect, maybe, because of the darker, roasted flavor. But I don't think so. I think there might be like another chemical component to that because it's all about chemistry and how your body absorbs something. So I just wonder if something in the darker, the longer roasting processes releases some other chemical that helps my body absorb the caffeine more quickly. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what I suspect.
That sounds like it could be a fun experiment, like on an investigation, like coffee drinkers, and just like, okay, well, I'll drink this tonight. We'll go back again the next night, drink a different kind of coffee, and see different experiences.
Okay, here's a real coffee test. Forgive me if this is uh, blasphemy, but if you took three psychics, one no coffee, one lots of coffee, and one a little bit of coffee, and then see who connects to the other world better.
That I would be really curious about that. I mean, you can even do that with alcohol because I mean, it's all
Uh,
going to be different, but
yeah.
you know, but the coffee, that because when you connect with the spirit world, your vibration needs to be higher. You need to be just like more on it, like, okay, I see, I hear, I feel, I know, and bam, 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 bam. So I would say with the more coffee, I would think you'd be more buzzing per se.
or
Yeah,
or
so
your
that would be
mind,
really interesting.
right? So your mind is a little bit quicker,
Hmm.
in a sense, to kind of keep up with that changing flow of energy and
Hmm.
signals or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hmm.
So wow, we've just really we've elevated the coffee world, I think,
Yeah.
today. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. Um, I wonder what other people are thinking about that too. So please comment down below if you have any thoughts about coffee and connecting psychically. Um, because a lot of people that I talk to, Mariah, are not coffee drinkers, they're tea drinkers, or they don't have any additives in their life to give them a kick, and they feel like that's the better way to connect to higher spirit and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. Like you drinking water, I mean, probably, if we only drank water all the time, that is the healthiest thing for the mind rather than becoming a coffee addict. But um, but there is something to be said about the effects of adding things to our body. I mean, some people connect on psychedelics to things. But now I'm really
Mhm.
curious because you made that comment about uh, drinking. Have you ever had an experience drinking and trying to connect
Oh.
with spirits on the other side?
Not intentionally, like, I will never drink, like, obviously, when I'm having a client or any of that. I don't, um like, on an investigation, back in the day, I would, like, have, like, all right, I would have a beer before, but I don't do that anymore because 'cause I'm more sensitive, and it's a little bit more
Right.
sacred work. It's just, my perspectives have changed a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, and I think that's why you'll go to bars. A lot of times bars are haunted, and because when you drink, your awareness level just goes right, well, your barriers go down, and when spirits see that, like, "Oh, they're gonna be more willing to see me or
Mm.
experience me." So, when I'm already kind of naturally aware and ice drink and I just kind of let my guard down, it's I sense spirit a lot more, and I really try not to. I'm like, "No, I'm not working," um but yeah, the connection's a lot easier. But I do know some mediums drink so they don't see them. So I think it's a very personal, but I think overall with many mediums, when we drink, we just the connect all our teachings, all our walls, they're just down and we're just like free flow. So
Yeah.
yeah.
A friend of mine, was telling me a story. She's sensitive, and, she was at a bar once, and she was actually singing at the bar, and then, going to the bar afterwards, and some people at the bar with her, a group of girls, were talking, and she kept getting this feeling of, like, someone tapping on her shoulder, and she was like, "Oh my god, please, not now." You know? And
Oh,
then this guy came through, and so then she turns to this person she does not know at the bar, and I can't remember all the details of the story, but something like he had died in like a drunk driving accident or something, and was with like another woman, but it wasn't what she thought, and like she freaked this woman out, and totally broke her down, and it was just like she was like, I don't want this now, but maybe you're right, maybe you're kind of dropping down the gate if you are consuming some other substance, some
yeah.
psychoactive substance.
It like you said, I mean, even with the psychedelics, sometimes, people do it in a controlled setting, and I mean, that goes back to even, the Native Americans, people they take, peyote and just all different things to connect, so I think it's a natural thing, but it's not to abuse it, and it's the intention, like, that actually, I'm more I'm more responsible, like, I would never, like, turn to someone. I would have to be very gentle, but there's the time and a place for connections, um, but yeah, I remember I was out drinking with a girlfriend of mine and it was her friend actually she knew, and I felt her dad just zoom in. I'm like, "Oh my god, not now." He goes, "No, you are talking to my daughter." And I'm just like, "But," he goes, "No, you're talking to my daughter." So even though part of me knew it wasn't always the best timing, I could just feel spirit just saying, there's a reason I need to talk to the daughter." And I did know her. I think I wouldn't do it if I didn't know her, because you don't know where strangers are in their grief process or anything like that. But this was a friend, my friend's friend. So, and I said, "Excuse me," and I forgot how started the conversation. But anyway, her father had just passed and she had just gotten married too. And the father needed to let his daughter know that he was at the wedding. So, it was just, and I remember in the time, I knew I was intoxicated. Doesn't happen much anymore, but I knew I was intoxicated, but yet suddenly I became sober just like that because I was connecting with telepathically with a third party. So my physical me being intoxicated had nothing to do with the reading. It was really interesting. But and then once the reading was over, then all of a sudden I came back to myself and I was just, happy and as a clam. But
Yeah.
but I
Well,
thought,
maybe
yeah, there's a time and place.
yeah, or maybe your adrenaline kicks in too in that moment.
Mhm.
Because I know that even when some people are intoxicated, depending on how and of course how much, but if adrenaline
Yeah.
kicks in, it can kinda get you into that sober state, at least for a short
Yeah.
period of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so where can people find out about Mariah Kunau?
Um, you can find me at my, website, The Paranormal Concierge. Um, I'm also on, I don't post a lot, I'm also on Facebook under, uh, The Paranormal Concierge. I don't do a lot of posting there, but, you can kinda see some stories, and I'm also on Instagram at, Mariah the Medium. You can find me there, and also on Twitter.
Mariah, are dragons real?
Are dragons real? I think so. Yeah, I think they are in different yeah, they are. Now, fire-breathing dragons, I'm not sure, but I do think dragons. But then why I don't know. I haven't seen a fire-breathing dragon. They possibly could be out there.
So then I guess the question is if you actually do, I mean, is it possible that any of us can actually see one? I mean, where do they live? Is it something in our minds, or is it something in another dimension, or is it just invisible?
I think, again, what sucks is it's all about timing, if we're in the right place at the
Mm,
right time with the right mindset, I think almost anything's possible. I
yeah.
but, or if you have a little bit to drink, then maybe you can just kidding.
Right.
But,
You
yeah,
become yeah,
but full disclosure,
yeah.
I don't recommend drinking and working with the spirit world. That's not professional, so I'm gonna put a little caveat to that. But, yeah, sometimes we do become more aware, but dragons, yeah, I think flying dragons, well, I think they are some kind of reptiles that do have their, kind of what they do have, like, um, smaller wings or things on their back that look like
Skin.
wings,
Yeah.
but they're not wings.
I don't
But
know.
people in the folklore have made them have wings. I can't remember where. I think it's in,
Interesting.
an Asian country. I forget which one. But, yeah. What about you? Do you believe in dragons?
You're not supposed to ask me that question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Um, I think probably not. Probably not. But I do like to think that, um, that there are other realities that we can intersect with, and um, perhaps in that reality, whatever that other reality might be, that they are real. And like you said, anything that we can possibly imagine, um, maybe we manifest that somehow. I mean, we really have no idea how the universe works, and consciousness is if we assume is the substrate of the universe itself. Well, consciousness then is imagination. So
Mhm.
if those two things are happening as part of the co-creation and evolution of the universe, perhaps anything that is imagined can split off into some other reality or another universe. That's where I am with dragons, and so I think that they are conceivably real. Yeah.
Kinda like the band Imagine Dragons.
The which ones?
Imagine Dragons.
Wait, what are those?
The band.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. Bad. Bad. I know.
We're gonna cover all topics of dragons. That's all right. Um, cool. Mariah, thank you so much for hanging with me for Coffee and
Oh,
UFOs.
thank you so much. It was great to see you, and thank you. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Yay.
All right, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Coffee and UFOs. If you like today's content, please comment down below. Please like, please subscribe, and please consider becoming a patron and supporting this channel. To all of you, peace and love, and live in the mystery.